How in the world do you stop this Sacramento Kings offense that has scored over 130 points in the last 5 straight games? And there is one man who is often overlooked, who has been on a tear for nearly the last 2 months. I'll share with you who that is right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season long. Today, presented by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10 News. And there's only one way that I need to start this podcast tonight. And it is with a player who so many times, even when he has big games, gets pushed to the end of the first segment or second segment, sometimes third segment. Someone who consistently does important things for the Sacramento Kings as a starter, but he's just not appreciated or not focused upon as much as he should be, especially with the nearly last 2 months that he's had. I'm talking about Harrison Barnes. I'm only starting the podcast with Harrison Barnes today, even though we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Kings offense as a whole, because Harrison has just continued to be excellent and is on just an incredible run of form right now offensively. He scored 29 points tonight. Shot 8 of 11 from the field, 4 of 6 from three-point range, and 9 of 11 from the free throw line in Sacramento's 132-119 win over the San Antonio Spurs. Over the last 2 months, or nearly the last 2 months, the last 23 games, including tonight, Harrison has scored in the single digits just once over those 23 games. And I've shared with you, when you're getting double-digit performances out of Harrison Barnes nightly, you can't ask for anything more. Even when sometimes the double digits are only 10, sometimes the double digits are 19 or even in the 20s. And I'm going to share with you in a second how good the Sacramento Kings are when Harrison Barnes scores 20 or more points. But offensively, I look at Harrison Barnes at best as the fourth option in this starting lineup, sometimes depending upon the game that Keegan Murray is having. Sometimes he's the fifth option. And I share with you coming into this season that I felt that if that was the role that Harrison Barnes had for the Sacramento Kings, the Kings would be in excellent shape offensively. Because Harrison is capable of being the third guy, second guy, and sometimes first guy on rare occasions. But as that fourth guy, who we know is just a consistent presence offensively when he can provide those double digits like he's been doing over the last 23 games. The leadership that he provides, the presence as a wing, which is so important here in Sacramento and so valuable here in Sacramento compared to other markets in the NBA who can just attract and trade and sign wings at will. In addition to all of that, when you're getting a Harrison Barnes, who, of course, off the court is a great locker room leader for this Kings team as well. When you're getting 20-plus points out of HB, when you're getting these scoring performances where he is at times taking over games, or he is carrying the Kings at times, he's shooting lights out from three-point range, he's putting the ball on the floor and making the right decisions, he is forcing defenses to respect and pay attention to him and not leave him on the perimeter to double De'Aaron Fox or double Domantas Sabonis. That Harrison Barnes is as valuable as it gets for the Sacramento Kings. The perfect fit for the Sacramento Kings. Over the last 23 games, Harrison Barnes has scored 20 or more points 8 times, including a 30-point performance that was just a couple of games ago. In those 8 games where he scored 20 or more points, the Sacramento Kings are 6-2. To be honest with you, I think it should be more than that. It should be better than that. I think the Sacramento Kings should be basically undefeated when Harrison scores 20 or more points. because you know how good offensively the rest of this team is. You know what you're getting out of Sabonis every night. You know what you're getting out of De'Aaron Fox, especially in the second half and in the fourth quarter. But when you're getting 20 points out of Harrison Barnes, in addition to the so many weapons that are on this team, whether it's Kevin Huerter going off, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, insert name here, in addition to the big two of the Sacramento Kings, the Kings should be winning. Now, I know a lot of the reason why at times they're losing these games is not because of any offensive inefficiencies. It's not like they need this scoring from Harrison Barnes to win, of course, with how good this offense is. But it comes on the defensive end of the floor. And yes, there are questions about Harrison's defense, just like there are questions about everybody on this roster's defense, the Kings' defense as a whole. But when you're getting 20 points out of Harrison Barnes, you should be winning those basketball games. You should be experiencing an advantage, a significant advantage over your opponent when your fourth option, at best third option in my mind in that starting lineup, is giving you 20 plus and is shooting as well as he's been shooting, especially from beyond the arc. This is the month of January for Harrison. 53% from the field, 50% from three-point range, 91% from the free throw line. He's absolutely on fire. He's averaging 21 points to go along with 4 rebounds. Now, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals. He's never been really one to fill up stat sheets in other ways. And again, of course, defensively, there's things that he and the entire team need to work on. But if you're getting, again, that kind of offensive output from Harrison, one, it's no surprise that the Kings are scoring 130-plus points a night when Harrison is providing what he's been providing offensively. But with Harrison shooting the ball that well, yeah, you're damn right the Kings should have one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the NBA, and they should be winning a majority of their games like they have been as of late. I mean, the Kings are already a really, really dangerous offensive team. With Harrison playing that well, how do you stop them? Even when Harrison isn't shooting that well, how do you stop this Sacramento Kings offense? What do you do? It's maybe the most unstoppable offense in basketball, not just this season, but maybe one of the most unstoppable offenses of all time, because it doesn't just rely and lean on one guy, right? Like we talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo being unstoppable, LeBron James at times being unstoppable, Nikola Jokic being unstoppable. And the Denver Nuggets, as of right now, are the closest team offensively to the Sacramento Kings in terms of offensive rating and unstoppable offense. But the Kings are on another level. They're on another tier. What do you do to stop this team offensively? Because there are so many weapons that when one guy's having a rough night, another steps up. If Kevin Huerter's not having the best of nights, Harrison Barnes is there. If Harrison's not having the best of nights, Keegan Murray is there, or Malik Monk off the bench, or Davion Mitchell with the night he had tonight. Trey Lyles has been playing out of his mind offensively, and I still haven't even mentioned De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Like, what do you do to stop this Sacramento Kings offense? What do you do? Tell me what you do. To me, there's only really 2 things you can do. One, you hope and pray that the Sacramento Kings as a team are having bad shooting nights, which they have had. The Kings at times are feasting offensively. They've been doing so over the last 5 games, but at times there can also be some famine. We've seen nights where the majority of the Kings roster, especially from three-point range, is struggling, and Sacramento does not look as prolific offensively during those times. Domantas Sabonis seems to be pretty consistent with the offensive output that he's putting up. Other guys have faded into the background at times, sometimes too many guys together on the same night, and that's really hurt the Sacramento Kings. So you can hope, you're not going to do anything yourself, but you can hope that the Kings are offensively having a bad night, or you can get Domantas Sabonis into foul trouble. Or as a joke third option, you can tie Sabonis to the bench or tackle him on every possession so the Kings can't run the ball through him. Because any other option other than that, the Kings offense is unstoppable. They run the offense through the high post with Domantas Sabonis. He can go in any direction that he wants to. He can attack the basket and score in the paint, which he's been doing at will as of late. Jakob Poeltl, even though he puts up great numbers offensively against the Sacramento Kings, defensively could do nothing against Domantas Sabonis tonight. And Poeltl's not the only one. I mean, basically every center in the NBA cannot handle Domantas Sabonis on the interior. He's just so strong and so skilled. In addition to that, you can run so much through Sabonis. You can run him. He can find cutters. He has his handoff to shooters, like the connections that he has with Keegan Murray and Kevin Huerter. He can play in the 2-man game with literally everybody on this roster, even if they've only played seconds together. He's super easy to play with, and that's something that Harrison Barnes and multiple Kings have said. And they said back in training camp when they were just getting started together, how easy it is to play with Domantas Sabonis. But it's not just him. Sabonis is the foundation of the Sacramento Kings offense, of course, but it's not just him that makes this offense as dangerous as it is. De'Aaron Fox can essentially coast for the first half and sometimes first 3 quarters of a game and then take over a game in the fourth quarter. Why? Because he plays with a star big man in Domantas Sabonis who can carry the load most of the way and get out of the way when he needs to, and he's willing to get out of the way. Not to mention, you have poachers on the perimeter, like Kevin Huerter, like Keegan Murray, like Malik Monk, like Harrison Barnes has been as of late shooting 50% from three-point range this month, who are all willing to knock down outside shots when you make the mistake of going at De'Aaron Fox. And even when you do go at De'Aaron, try and double team him. He's such a good ball handler. He's so crafty. He can get wherever he wants on the floor. He's hitting threes. He's getting to the rim, still not getting to the foul line nearly as much as he needs to. What do you do to stop the Sacramento Kings offense? What do you do? I would be miserable if I were a defensive coach or defensive coordinator trying to game plan for the Sacramento Kings. Because basically you're hoping to make life as difficult as possible on one of the 2 stars for the Kings. More than likely, it's going to be De'Aaron Fox because I don't know what the hell you do to frustrate Domantas Sabonis other than hit him in the head 90 times a game, which he already does get hit in the head 90 times a game. Basically, you try and take De'Aaron Fox out of the equation, outscore the Kings and take advantage of their bad defense and maybe put them in a hole, and then hope that Keegan or Kevin or Malik or Trey or Harrison don't kill you. And right now, all those guys are killing you. It's crazy to me that the Kings aren't 5-0 during this 5-game stretch where they've scored 130 or more points. It's because when they scored 134, they gave up 136 in their loss to the Los Angeles Lakers. Again, defensively, we know the struggles of the Sacramento Kings team. So how do you beat the Sacramento Kings? You either just straight up outscore them and take advantage of their woeful defense, and the Kings defense was woeful at times tonight in San Antonio, or you hope they're all shooting terrible, or you find a way to knock Sabonis out of the game one way or another, and hopefully it doesn't turn into dirty ways of figuring that out. I missed something talking about Harrison Barnes, and it's really important when talking about Harrison Barnes. So I'm going to go back to that really quick. I'm not trading Harrison Barnes. I'm not. Like, I know people are saying, well, hold on, Matt. Like, if Monty McNair, if there's a deal that Monty can't refuse that fits the De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis timeline, and I'm not mocking you. I understand this completely. This is what's been going through my head. I understand what you're saying 100%. I don't know if that trade exists. I don't think that trade does exist. In addition to that, Harrison is such an integral part of this Sacramento Kings team, so well respected in that locker room, such an important fit on this team who's, besides De'Aaron Fox, has been here the longest. You run an extremely serious risk of screwing up what the Sacramento Kings have going by trading him away. But I understand. There's so many fans, so many media members, myself included, infatuated with like OG Anunoby, right? And the great stuff that he's doing with the Toronto Raptors. On tomorrow's Locked On Kings podcast, I'm going to have the Locked On Raptors podcast join me, Sean Woodley from Locked On Raptors. He's going to join me, and we're going to talk about how available OG is and what it would take to get OG. Would they ask for Harrison Barnes? They'd probably ask for Keegan Murray. I have no idea what it is. Yes, I understand OG would be attractive. Is it worth giving up what it would probably take to get him when you could just keep this Harrison Barnes? It's probably not going to score 20 points a night for the remainder of the season, is not going to continue to put up the numbers that he's put up in January for the remainder of the season. That's fine. You don't need him to, but he's still there and he's still available for you and he's solid. It's almost 2 months where the guy's giving you what you need, which is double-digit scoring every single night and a consistent starting wing presence. I'm not trading Harrison Barnes. I'm running the risk of losing him this summer. I said coming into the season I would run the risk of losing him and hoping that this season went well enough where Harrison would want to stick around, and I think the Sacramento Kings are doing that. Harrison is probably going to sign his last major contract, and even then I don't think it's going to be as major as this one that he signed under Vlade Divac with the Sacramento Kings that's about to run out. I don't think it's going to be that big and that lucrative financially of a contract for him. But he's going to want to go someplace where he can be a contender, where he can win. If the Sacramento Kings continue on this projection, on this path where they end up a 4th or 5th freaking seed after being out of the playoffs for 16 straight seasons, I have a hard time finding a better scenario for Harrison than what he's dealing with right now. So I'm running the risk. I'm not trading Harrison. I'm running the risk. I'm keeping him, and I'm hoping that I can re-sign him. But more importantly, I understand what he brings to the team right now, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish right now, and even if I do have to risk losing him during the summertime, the playoffs are before the summertime. I'm reaping the rewards of those playoffs before I have to worry about losing him for nothing or letting him walk. That's just me personally. Another unsung hero. And I've talked about him mostly in a negative light here on Locked On Kings. Davion Mitchell. Defensively, we know what Davion Mitchell brings, right? Off night. He brings it every single night, and he has extremely important defensive plays. He plays on a really bad defensive team. He is the best defender on a really bad defensive team. So a lot of times what he brings goes underlooked because of how much the team struggles defensively. I guarantee you if the Kings were to trade Davion Mitchell away, and I think he's one of their biggest trade chips that they have. Not their biggest one, but one of their biggest. If the Kings trade away Davion Mitchell, even if defensively they're a bad team, they would get significantly worse immediately. So I have always respected that side of Davion Mitchell's game, and I appreciate that side of Davion Mitchell's game. Offensively, I've shared with you how much of a letdown I feel like he's been so far this season. And I've also shared with you how I've been confused how the Sacramento Kings are trying to use Davion offensively. Well, off night had an on night tonight in San Antonio. 19 points, 7 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from three-point range. Just an awesome game offensively for Davion. And Davion has worked hard on his three-point jumper, not just over the last couple years that he's been here in Sacramento, but going back to his time at Baylor and all the work that he put in to improve as a three-point shooter towards the end of his time in college. I know I don't expect Davion Mitchell to be this type of offensive player, to have this kind of offensive output every single night, right? That's unrealistic. 19 points from Davion Mitchell is going to be every once in a blue moon, and just like when Harrison Barnes scored his 20, if you're getting 19 from Davion Mitchell, you better be winning that game. Unless it's like what he showed at the end of last season, which is he's playing over 40 minutes a night in garbage time at the end of a lost season, and he can just put up numbers. I'll say this, though. If Davion can bottle a little bit, some of this offensive output, right? I'm going with like a metaphor from Space Jam, the original Space Jam, right? Where they have the secret stuff drink that makes them all powerful, right? If Davion could take this offensive performance, turn it into a drink, and take sips of it every single night, not gulp it all down so you're dropping 19, but take sips of it every night. If you can get this kind of threat of a three-point shooter, this kind of offensive output, 9, 10, 11, 12 points a night, 40+% shooting from three-point range, it takes the Kings to an even higher level. And I understand scoring isn't necessarily a massive need of the Sacramento Kings. I get it. I know. It's not Davion's offense that's holding the Kings back. The Kings' offense is already excellent, even with the struggles that he's been having this season. But with how dynamic this second unit is, how good we know Malik Monk is, how good Trey Lyles has been as of late, Terrence Davis at times can get hot. Chimezie Metu at times can get hot. As good as this second unit is, your backup point guard giving you 15 to 20 minutes where he is that kind of offensive threat, especially when a lot of times he shares the floor with De'Aaron Fox, in addition to the defense that he already provides the Sacramento Kings. If you can get that out of Davion, I mean, his career rockets to a whole nother level, and the Sacramento Kings are significantly better immediately. No doubt in my mind. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn. And as a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members that you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. You've heard me talk about LinkedIn Jobs before and compare it to like an NBA scouting department for your job. It helps connect you with the most skilled applicants who are looking for a job like yours, or maybe they're not looking for a job like yours, but your job is perfect for their skill set. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find all of the above. They help you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with their targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insight from your job post company and their 875 million member profiles to put your posts in front of the most qualified candidates out there. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs, and you can connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Pessimistic Matt has to make a little bit of an appearance. The Kings' interior defense was not good. But their interior defense was not good, especially in the first half. Kings gave up 66 points in the paint against the San Antonio Spurs in this game. At times, especially in the fourth quarter, got a little bit closer than I would like it to, but it's on the road versus at home, so I expect that a little bit more. It's just harder to win on the road, period, regardless of the competition that you're taking on. 66 points in the paint in the game, not good. And unfortunately, very many times we've seen the Kings give up 60 or more points in the paint this season. Been a consistent struggle for this team. However, pessimism going back to optimism. The Kings gave up 44 points in the paint in the first half, meaning 22 points in the paint allowed in the second half. I'll take 22 and a half from this Sacramento Kings team. If you were to take 44 points in the paint for the game for the Kings, that's worth celebrating. Hell, Mike Brown, after a Kings win at home I think it was against Orlando, the win against Orlando, Mike Brown was saying he was going to buy lottery tickets with the number 42 on it because the Kings only gave up 42 points in the paint. That's the ideal number. That's the ideal range for the Sacramento Kings defensively, and they can accomplish that. So what this shows is that this team is capable of making adjustments, and we've seen that many times throughout this season. Something that is still pleasantly surprising for us in Sacramento, right? Because former head coaches, especially the last regime under Luke Walton, really struggled with those halftime adjustments. The Kings, basically, the way they played in the first half was the way they played in the second half. And if teams made adjustments against them, they were screwed. If they were already screwed at halftime, they were double screwed. It's just, they kind of were what they were for 48 minutes. Mike Brown and his coaching staff have shown an ability to get this team to adjust, not just during halftime breaks, but in quarter breaks. Hell, we'll see Mike Brown call a timeout 30 or 40 seconds into a game or 30 or 40 seconds into a quarter because he's not happy with the defense, adjust, and we've seen the Kings instantly respond to that. So this is just another example of the Kings really struggling to take care of the paint in one half of basketball, doing a better job, and that allowed them to pull away and ultimately win this game on the road. So I'm very pleased with that. My question is, are the Kings just a second half team? Should the Kings' game plan just be keep it close, take a slight lead if you can into the halftime break, and once second half happens, De'Aaron Fox starts to turn it on a little bit. The Kings' offense is what it is. Defensively, they make the adjustments they need to make with a half of context, and then they win. Are the Sacramento Kings a second half team? Now, we've seen a couple second halves where the Kings have fallen apart, 2 games in particular against the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks, which are, of course, 2 of the best teams in the NBA and 2 championship contenders. So maybe it's not a blueprint to beat the best of the best right now, but it's worked as of late. Maybe the Kings are just a second half team. Maybe that's their blueprint for success. Here's a little advice for Jeremy Sohan and people on Twitter. Don't piss off De'Aaron Fox. And I'm speaking from experience here. Guilty of that. Done that maybe a couple times. Don't worry about it. But De'Aaron Fox pissed off is a whole nother beast. And I don't know if you noticed, Mark Jones and Katie Christensen were pointing it out on the broadcast. Jeremy Sohan in the fourth quarter, I believe, was jawing at De'Aaron a little bit. And I appreciate Sohan for taking on that challenge. Sohan has played pretty well against the Sacramento Kings the 2 times the Kings and Spurs have met this season. Sohan also had some great moments when I watched him live inside the Golden One Center earlier this season. As soon as Jeremy Sohan talked crap to De'Aaron, as soon as De'Aaron got the ball in the next possession, he dunked on Sohan's face. That's what happens when you piss off De'Aaron Fox. Stick to your weight class, Jeremy. And I say that with respect because I like you. and I like the player that you are, and I think you're a good, solid player. You're not on De'Aaron Fox's level, and De'Aaron Fox reminded you of that in that moment. But then again, actually, for the sake of the Sacramento Kings and for the sake of De'Aaron Fox, keep pissing him off. You know what? Everybody in the league should try and talk crap to De'Aaron Fox, because if that's the side of De'Aaron that you get from it, the Kings will take that every single time. And how many times over the course of De'Aaron's career have we talked about, if De'Aaron plays angry, look out. When De'Aaron plays with a chip on his shoulder, look out. And De'Aaron has been more chippy and more vocal this season than he's ever been in his career. Some of that has been on social media. Some of it has been at yours truly. Some of that has been at other fans. Some of it has been towards the officials on social media. Hell, he's gotten chippy at the officials in-game many times. He's talked smack to other players that are trying to go at him. If that competitive fire from De'Aaron Fox, if that's the way that it consistently shows up and it produces the results that it's produced so far this season, I think De'Aaron over the last month of the season is averaging like 26, 27, nearly 28 points a game, something like that. I saw it online. I don't know the exact number. If that's what you're getting out of De'Aaron with this chippiness, I'm all for it. Even if it's me getting dunked on social media or whatever. I don't care. De'Aaron Fox is playing like a superstar. I think a lot of it also has to do with this mindset that he's developed, and he's not putting up with crap anymore. He's not going to be disrespected anymore in a lot of ways. And he's playing like it and at times talking like it on the floor or on his social media accounts. As long as it's working, I'd love to see it tonight. He had 23 points, shot 11 of 21 from the field. Did only have 3 assists, though. I would like to see that assist number go up if I'm going to be nitpicky about anything. I know De'Aaron's capable of sharing the ball more than that. Again, assists are a two-way street. It's not just you passing the ball. Your teammates have to hit the shots. So not anything worth being overly negative about, but I think De'Aaron, too, would say that he wishes he had more assists in this game. This Sunday episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Built Bar. Hey, end your week or start a new week with Built products. And right now, we're in January. It's New Year's resolution times, and a lot of our New Year's resolutions have to do with being healthier, eating better, exercising more, losing weight, putting on muscle. Whatever it is, we want to accomplish those resolutions, but so many of us have the sweet tooth. I'd say all of us like our delicious treats, like the things that make us feel good while we're eating, right? Why should we have to give those up in order to accomplish the fitness goals that we want? Not everything that tastes delicious has to be bad for you, and that's Built's mission. They provide these granola bars, their protein bars, and their marshmallow puffs, which are protein-infused marshmallows. Yeah, that's a real thing. They're covered in 100% chocolate. So all the chocolate that you want, my wife is a chocoholic. She loves chocolate. These bars are perfect for her because they have so many different flavor profiles. They're covered in that chocolate that she enjoys. It's like eating a candy bar, essentially. But in addition to that, they're incredibly healthy for you. We're talking 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 16 grams of protein in your average Built bar. And now you don't have to just go to Built.com and order a box, although you can still do that if you want to order the custom boxes that you love. You can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Go to the pharmacy section. Get a box. Get a box and try it out. You can get like a box of just 4 bars and give it a whole test run. And they have great flavors like cookies and cream, double chocolate. They have their coconut puffs, brownie batter, churro. There are so many for you to try. You can thank me later. Give them a shot and tell me you don't love Built Bar. This is going to be something I'm keeping my eye on for the next couple of weeks. The Sacramento Kings are 6 wins shy of matching their 30-win total from last season. It's January. We still got February, March, and April for the Sacramento Kings to pass that. What was the over-under that Vegas set on the Kings win total? Was like 32.5 or 33.5 or 34.5, something like that. Easiest over of our freaking lives. And I hope you took advantage of not just my advice, but took advantage of Vegas's oversight and maybe disrespect in setting that line, because it's easy freaking money. The fact that the Sacramento Kings are going to surpass, not just reach, but surpass that win total this month is excellent. And they're 6 games over 500 now. Hopefully that number will continue to go up with this upcoming game in LA against the Lakers, which is a very important game, by the way. Like, the Lakers are one of those teams that I expect to be trying to make a push and maybe trying to catch the Kings a little bit in the standings by the end of the season. Of course, they have players like LeBron freaking James who've been there and done that before. Kings win this game, they have the guaranteed tiebreaker over the Los Angeles Lakers. That could end up being huge. But it's not just about that. In addition to that, like, you have a home game coming up against the Oklahoma City Thunder, then a really tough home game coming up against the Philadelphia 76ers. So there could be some losses in there. Hopefully there are some wins to keep that win total going up. for Sacramento. But the fact that they are so close to their win total from last season already, just another example of how much better this Kings team is and how much fun this season has been for the Sacramento Kings. Remember how much of a problem it was going back to the Kings offense? Remember how much of a problem it was for Sacramento to close games offensively? Like, they would fall into bad habits or ISO ball or just make the wrong decisions or just miss big shots or whatever it was. Like, for 16 years, essentially, if the Kings were in a close game, we still expected them to lose, regardless of their competition, because the late game execution wasn't great. Sometimes they'd have heroic moments and game winners and things like that, but for the most part, the expectation was the Kings are going to find a way to lose this game. That's gone, right? I don't know about you. I'm really enjoying covering and talking about a team where if they have a lead in the fourth quarter, for the most part, I'm comfortable. Now, I'm not saying I don't get nervous at times, especially in games like Utah when the Kings just beat the Jazz by 1 point in a couple of games, or the game at home against the Denver Nuggets where it took, no, the Kevin Huerter three-pointer was against the Utah Jazz, but it took a Herculean fourth quarter effort for the Sacramento Kings to hold on and beat the Denver Nuggets by 1 point. Like, I'm not saying I don't get nervous, and at times I don't expect the Kings to fall short in the fourth quarter. What I'm saying is this team has figured out a way to consistently execute, especially offensively, the right way. Defense has to catch up a little bit, but when the Kings need a bucket in the fourth quarter, whether it's De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, or whoever, they're getting those buckets more often than not. And that is very, very fun to say. Oh, speaking of Domantas Sabonis, we're at the end of the podcast, and I haven't even mentioned the night that Domantas Sabonis had. I mean, I could start every podcast. Just let's start with Sabonis' stat line and worship that really quick and then move on to the rest of the pod. I'm saving it to the end this time. 18 points, 18 rebounds, 8 assists. I hope you like the number 8. If you do, it's probably a lucky night for you. 18 points, 18 rebounds, 8 assists. Another game where he flirted with a triple-double, missed it by a couple of assists. I think I read from the Sacramento Kings PR team, although I don't quote me on this verbatim, but I think he's like the second King ever to have consecutive 15, 15, and 5 games. Could be wrong about that. It was something along those lines. Regardless, I mean, there are new notes like that about Sabonis every freaking night that we get. Sabonis is doing this historically. Sabonis is doing this for the Kings historically. The numbers he's putting up is ridiculous and worth mentioning here at the end of the pod. Again, on tomorrow's Locked On Kings podcast, Sean Woodley from the Locked On Raptors podcast, he will be joining me. We're going to talk about some of the tradable assets that the Kings have and some of the available assets that the Toronto Raptors have. Some people seem to believe that the Raptors are going to be sellers. Sean will share with us if that's true or if that's not. He'll give us an idea of how much it's going to take to get an OG Anunoby or a Pascal Siakam. Who is available and who's not on that Raptors roster. We're going to talk about that. So if you want to prepare some of your trade package proposals for Sean and for the Raptors to try and get one of those guys here to Sacramento, do that, and I'm looking forward to that episode. Hope you will join me for that tomorrow. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.